I just knew I was in the arms of love and that I had been healed from something,
Mhm.
whatever it was. Every cancer cell, that was, where my mind had been. I knew I would never have cancer again. I just knew whatever it was, something was different. I become aware that my teeth on the back left side are touching. And, my mind is reeling as fast as it can go, and I can't believe it.
Welcome to the Maggie Miner podcast, where we always remind you to feel joy. I'm so excited today to share with you my friend Robin's mystical experience, a healing experience, and all of the rich background that goes along with it. I hope you enjoy. As Robin here and I are both practitioners of Dr. Joe's work, that is the true foundation of real manifestation that lasts and really becomes who you really changes who you are. And so it's all natural. Um,
Are you making my heart like they're like already moving? It's so where two or more are gathered, right?
so today,
Ah,
today joining me, this is Robin Andrew Smith. She's going to be sharing her incredible manifestation story. Now, Robin doesn't. I don't know if you remember this, but we had lunch as a group like about a year ago, and you and Justin both shared your manifestation stories, and yours
ah.
was so crazy, like impossible, that I just remember walking away from that lunch going, I can
Mhm.
do the impossible. Um and it really affected me. So I'm really excited for you to share that story with our viewers here.
Wow. Well,
Um
thank you. Thank you so much, Maggie. Thank you for your courage to open this up to the world. These are super vulnerable experiences, and
mhm,
yet, like you said, we probably underestimate the power of story, the power of the inspiration that our own life can have to others,
mhm,
and this is the first time I've really talked publicly about what happened to me because it was so incredibly supernatural.
mhm.
And I did not expect it. Not in a million years did I even lay down on that floor at the time at the coherence healing. There were multiple things leading up to it. I
Mhm.
didn't expect to get chosen. Um,
Well,
at
let's
the
let's
Yeah, and I was going to say
let's
at the
let's
moment
back
in time, I thought I had already been healed,
up.
not really knowing there was something deeper, right?
Let's start off by telling the viewers, like, so what was the issue? You had some serious issues.
Well, it wasn't the issue. The healing actually wasn't the issue, which is what's so interesting. So, I went to an encephalon retreat in October of 2022.
This is
I had
Dr.
found
Joe Dispenza.
right. Say
Sorry.
that again. What?
Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Yes, Dr.
Great
Joe
viewers.
Dispenza's retreat. It
Uh-huh.
was a 7-day
Yeah.
retreat, and I had found Dr. Joe earlier in the year in March.
Mhm.
And when I found him, it was because my brother was going through pancreatic cancer at the time, and he was about halfway through his journey. And someone introduced me to the formula and just invited me. I'd never heard of this work. Um, and I decided to show up just to learn. And then I felt like I had been given the greatest gift of a lifetime. In the middle of that very intense pancreatic cancer journey with my brother, I was a main support for him. Um, as a matter of fact, he had charged me. Um, he said to me, a lot of people are going to help me know how to live or try to fight for my life. But he said to me, Robin, I want you to also help me prepare to die. Should that be what happens? And so it was it was quite the charge at the time. And I was conflicted and wanting to do both at the same
Mhm.
time. So
Mhm.
here came this formula with all of this beautiful intersection between science and spirituality. And so I dove into the work as deep as possible, also with the effort to learn it, to share it, which
Mhm.
is really the takeaway from my story at the end of the day. Um, fast forward, it's July, and I started to have this weird sensation. Oh, let's say June-ish. No? Okay, I'm going to back up. So fast forward from my introduction to the formula, I start feeling a little nervous about my own body in light of my brother's experience. And I kept getting this feeling that I needed to check in with the doctor. And so I scheduled a colonoscopy, and they couldn't fit me in until July. And I came out and opened my eyes, and the doctor says, "You have cancer."
Oh, I didn't get that
And
part of the story.
and I was like, "Really? Well, I guess I'll just have to meditate more." And it was a shock, and also not a surprise on some level,
Hmm.
as if my brother's journey had opened up, an opportunity for me to dive a little deeper into my own health. Um, so I had a surgery in August, and then I decided to go to a retreat in order to learn more in an effort to help my brother, as well as assume that if there were any remaining cancer cells in there. I was what they call a 2A, which means it's an option to do chemo. I was highly encouraged to do it. I was not interested in it. So I thought, this is important. I'll go to this retreat and really deep dive and see if I can, based on all the testimonials and things I had read.
Hmm.
Um, but at my heart of hearts, I was not going for me. I was going to learn so that I could come back and support my brother.
That's
He
so
was supposed
interesting.
to have gone with me.
Uh-huh.
My sister came as well. Um,
Wait,
but
did your brother go? I'm sorry.
he couldn't go. He was too
Okay.
sick.
Uh,
He was too sick. We were supposed to go together. He
mhm.
made a decision at the very end that, where he was in his journey, in case he was too sick and he wanted to be with his children,
Mhm.
and felt that that was the priority at the moment.
Mhm.
And he must have had some knowings.
Yeah.
So I went to the retreat, and unbeknownst to me, was chosen for a healing. And of course, as many people do when they get chosen, I said, no, no, no. I've had surgery. I'm free. I'm good. And they were like, no, if you're chosen, you're a candidate for healing. And I was like, okay, well. And I remember the flood of tears, just the complete, flood of, whoa, okay, I thought I was healed. Maybe there's more. I guess there's more. I was so narrow focused on the cancer at the moment, I kind of forgot about other things that had been going into my body for
Hmm.
20 plus years. So, do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, yeah. No, this is perfect. I didn't realize all these intersections.
Aren't they
So,
interesting? That's what I mean.
yeah,
This
this,
is such
yeah,
an onion to be,
yeah.
but this was, something that if I look back now, this had been building for many, 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 many years. And through the gift of my brother's journey
Hmm.
and our intersection of cancers, um, I was gifted with many things. So, when I went into the healing, I was a little bit nervous, and Joe had expressed a lot of things to the audience through
Hmm.
the week. When energy moves, it can be really big. He told different stories to sort of prepare those of us for the unexpected,
Yeah.
and as the retreat was going on, I was so incredibly open-hearted because of my passion for someone else. And, often in this work, we talk about the love we give as the love we receive. And it's very interesting to me in retrospect, because I went there really for someone else,
Hmm.
not for myself, and had the explosion, the probably explosion of my lifetime. I don't imagine I'll ever experience anything like that ever again. Um, the Joe kind of prepares us, and maybe about day 3 of the retreat, some really strange things started happening to my body. Again, I was super unzipped. I woke up, I think, on night 3 of the retreat, before the night before the healing, in the middle of the night, and it was quite a powerful moment. I'm dead asleep, and
Hmm.
I wake up to this, like, something hits my head and shoots down the core of my body, and I shot like into like a kind of a frozen like an arrow, like straight as an arrow, and I was like, oh,
Yeah,
what,
I've experienced that. Yeah, and
what
did you
is
shake? Did you shake? For,
well, it shook
my,
itself out after a second.
yeah,
Yes.
it's like a turkey baster. Like you're on the spit.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
great
Yeah, our friend Brianna's, that's how she used to describe it.
right. And it was, and I was very frightened for a
Mhm,
second, and then it sort of jiggled itself out, and I was like, okay, wow, energy is real, right? Like I always had it up here in my head what it
mhm,
was, but now I think it's the power of the people, the power of community.
mhm,
And there's, I didn't really know that in my life, that I have a certain level of energy, but then when everyone is together and we're on purpose together,
mhm.
tapping into that heart space, there was this momentum. And so I remember standing up, I walked on the balcony to catch my breath, and I tried to let go of the fear that my
Mhm.
analytical mind wanted to have. So I only think that's an important piece of the story is, when you try to articulate that intersection that the mind wants to say is fear, but my heart found a new nomen, found a new verbiage. It would call it awe. And so I tried to begin to allow awe to be the experience, the feeling, instead of fear, because I was past an edge. Do you know what I'm saying by that? Like I
Yeah,
had gone just past an edge, and then it could have frightened me and I could have shut it down. But I tried to say, this is awe. This is that intelligent love, that source, whatever it is,
yeah.
it's trying to love me. And I knew that with my heart. So I tried to invert that and
And
allow that my mind to settle and to be in the wonder of what had happened.
that was the first time you shook, right?
Yes, that
Yeah,
definitely.
that seems
I
to be a big moment for a lot of people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, and only because I had the supportive community
Mhm,
was I able to not, as people, constrict it, and which I think
mhm,
it probably had been constricted in my body for a long, long, long time, like even
mhm,
all the way back to being a child, when I first felt the power of, this divine, magnificent, thing that
mhm,
makes the birds fly, and the oak trees
mhm,
grow and babies come into the world,
mhm,
whatever that was. It was beyond my mind. And I remember being a child, and when I was in touch with that, my mind couldn't do it. And I remember, as I hit 8, 10, 12, and I would try to go there, that flood that I felt that night, that same night, that
mhm.
flood, I had to put some sort of box around it on some level in my youth.
Yeah,
Um, I didn't want to go crazy. Well,
yeah.
now I know that you don't have to go crazy. You can be both, in awe and wonder, and allow yourself to let go of that edge of fear.
Mhm, mhm.
And I say to my husband often, when sometimes when I'm having across another edge, a sound will come out of my mouth, and he's like, "What is going on in there?" And the best metaphor I've ever been able to find is, that scripture, that Christmas scripture in the Bible around the shepherds. That's the best, when I read that about the shepherds in the fields and they saw the angels, and that's the best I can do for what happens to me when I get right across that edge.
Yeah,
And there's a sensation, or a heartening, some sort of heartening that I'm in, where my heart is just that much larger or grander than I knew it could be.
yeah,
And so while it may sound a little awkward coming out of my mouth, I said, I wonder what sounds they made, in the presence
yeah.
of the
Well,
divine,
there's
or
not words for the things. Yeah.
the holiest of whatever. So sort of, the desensitizing, the letting go of, whatever maybe childhood confusion or shame I might have associated with that, shame of feeling different or whatever
Mhm.
it was. Um, that really, I lost that in that moment of time. It was a defining
Mhm.
moment of my life.
Mhm.
I got to lose it. I was grateful to lose it. And that was in part because of my relationship with my brother, and it was all worth it, at that point. So I had that, and I think on that note, my body had divine was preparing me for what was about to come. Um, and I've always been a little bit shy in the sense that while I'm trained to stand in front of people or be with people and professionally as a facilitator or speaker, I don't I've never really been comfortable just um being kind of that center of attention. While I can do it, there's a discomfort sort of in it. And so I'm not the first person to jump on a stage, right? Or to be that center of attention. I'd rather folks not be looking at me, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so when Joe started to describe all these things, that were happening as it really was a level of vulnerability that I can't describe, and to be able to stay open to what was going on. And that's why I say relationship is so key here, and the supportive community and others, in that I really felt like what drove me there, what even got me there, was my love for him.
Mhm.
So as I go to lay down, I said to myself, we're just going to receive whatever these beautiful people have for me. And I just want to clean up some cancer cells. That was kind of the thought. And so, I lay down, and then Joe does a thing where he sort of prepares your body, and I got really, really relaxed. I really did. There's a method to it, and I felt very much in the flow, in the stream, and I had really let go. And those doors open, and as they say, love walked in. And as soon as it did, I my body started to shake, and it
These are other
started to
people, the
yeah,
healers. Yeah.
right, the healers come into the room. So we have a minute as the Healies. There are about 200 of us, I believe, lying there.
Hmm.
And the door opened, and as soon as it did, I went from this super calm, relaxed, to very, very vibrant.
Hmm. Hmm.
My body started to do all kinds of things, and I allowed it. I had allowed it. I was in the awe of it, and there was a lot of movement, I remember a lot of jiggling, a lot of shaking, and I was like, I just kept saying to myself, love is here. You can relax. Love is here. It's okay. It's okay.
Hmm.
We're in the awe, and coaching myself almost to not let the analytical mind come in there. It was
Hmm.
so powerful. And this healing continues. Everyone, it has its ritual about it.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden, I don't remember when or what happened. There was literally a lightning bolt. That's all I can say. It was a lightning bolt. It was as electric as any documentary I've ever seen. I've never been in the presence of, watching someone be struck by lightning,
Hmm.
just the stories of how it would have felt. I've seen lightning from afar. A lightning bolt came from the right side of my body, and it went through my midline, across my body. It caused a sound. I screamed at the top of my lungs, as loud as a person can scream. I shot like out of my own skin to the ceiling. I was watching my body as this scream comes out of my body. I I know I exploded off the floor only because I had my little jewelry bracelet and a bolster under my leg. The jewelry flew off my wrist, and these are kind of tight little things, bracelets. They came off. My bolster was at least 2 feet away, and then I came back down. I don't know how far I flew off the floor. I don't remember. It was just a scream of screams that released from my body, and an electrical current that I can only describe as being struck by lightning. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
But really interesting was that it went across my body, which is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the healing goes on. And I'm like, whatever you are after you get struck by lightning. I have no words for that. Like
Right.
a noodle, a wet noodle, whatever that energy had built it, it exploded. I
Uh-huh.
was no longer in the same body. I knew that. Um, and I was at that intersection of belief and non-belief, right?
Mhm.
Like I couldn't not believe what had happened to me, and my mind had nowhere to put it. I was not the person that would ever do that. I couldn't, it was just like, there, and I actually think at the end I did have some form of giggle, kind of like, whoa,
Yeah.
what, and I remember an incredible peace. I remember a relief. And I had no idea what had happened. It didn't matter at that point. I just knew I was in the arms of love and that I had been healed from something,
Mhm.
whatever it was. Every cancer cell, that was, where my mind had been. I knew I would never have cancer again. I just knew whatever it was, something was different. And so I got up and there's a beautiful ritual and you hug and I'm trying to begin to get up and sort of walk and so my sister is been somewhere in the room and we're supposed to hook up for some dinner
Mhm.
and I knew I needed to walk. I needed to just move. I needed to integrate. It was very powerful. So the group departs and I start walking. I'm thinking, okay, I got to find the sunset. I got to go say thank you for whatever that was. And there's a beautiful bridge in Dallas and I started to walk out to watch the sunset and as
Mhm.
I'm walking, I don't know, I start to notice my jaw is just feels a little different and I start kind of biting my teeth and all of a sudden I have this epiphany. I have this complete awakening. Like I'm really back in my body now as
A new person.
a new person and
Yeah.
yeah, as a new person and I become aware that my teeth on the back left side are touching. And my mind is reeling as fast as it can go and I can't believe it. So the backstory here is that for 20 years, since it's right at 20 years, since 2000, that would have been 2022, right after my second daughter was born, my nervous system had been so out of whack due to an injury I had in the 1995 earthquake that went on for 5, 6 years. This injury evolved that my nervous system was sort of whacked. That when I was pregnant with my second daughter, something evoked, and I my jaw on the left side grew while she was growing, overgrew, which caused a complete sort of contortion
Mhm.
in my jaw, and my back teeth had not touched for since that time, since 2022.
Was it painful or was it just
It was, yes, it caused all kinds of problems for 20 years. It caused pain. They had suggested a surgery at some point to kind of rebalance
Mhm.
because they didn't touch, which is one of the reasons I think this lightning bolt, whatever it knew to
Yeah.
go midline. I had for years had sort of almost atrophy on the left side of my body because the right side of my body was doing all of the work because the teeth were affecting, all of the chewing was on this side, all of the muscles, strength was on this side. And the left side, there were all these residual consequences to the jaw being out of alignment.
The energy was
Headache, yeah,
asymmetrical.
like,
Yeah.
yes, it was
Yeah.
it, and you can see there's still some residual
Uh-huh.
of the jaw, but the teeth somehow, I thought it was the jaw that had moved. My dentist later said no, it was the teeth that moved, that somehow were able to touch, which then now, gosh, that's 3 years later. I've had all these beautiful, amazing consequential healings in the rest of my body where there was a lot of injury as well. Um, which is just so fascinating because when you think about structure of the body and bones, but I go and I realize my teeth are touching and I just can't understand it. I can't understand it. I mean, I had lived with a mouthpiece. I wore a mouthpiece every day for 15 years. It took me about 5 years to evolve into that mouthpiece. I had worked with TMJ specialists, multiple, probably, I mean, upwards of $30,000 and all kinds of different treatments and things just to help the nervous system cope with, this deficit, this, sort of, I don't know, disformity, I guess, I don't know, structural problem, let's just say. Um, and here I am aware that in an instant, there's a complete bone change. Like, and I couldn't believe it. I didn't know what to do with it. I just kept tapping. I was like, wow, wow, wow. How is this going to affect everything? The way I eat, the way I move, the way I talk, the way, I had lived with nightmares for about 12 years,
Mhm.
which, they said were just partly of what would happen at night when the bones would do, and then the brain would go somewhere and I would have dreams or whatever it was.
Mhm.
Um, Again, it's very complicated, the body and all the chemistry that goes along with it. But I knew I was in a new body, as you said, and I went back and I found my sister, and I looked at her, and I just started clapping my teeth like this, and she bursted into these tears, and she said, "When we had lunch today, I was looking across and I saw your mouth at the table, and I said to myself, I wonder if this work could heal my sister's jaw." And I put that intention out there, she said. I put that intention out there. And so, from there, all kinds of beautiful and wonderful things have occurred. But I think the takeaway, for your audience
Mhm.
is that I went in there thinking, I like to think of it now as like that Titanic sort of iceberg thing, I went in there thinking about the cancer, what was there at the moment, right? Never, really forgetting about, the 20 years that probably had led up to that, right? All of the nervous system
Mhm.
dysregulation that was going on in my body, due to both the structural and all of the emotional um, addictions that were included in that, the emotional chemistry that had, been running through my system and my body, the feelings for the years, about it, and whether the emotions created the jaw thing or the jaw thing created the emotion, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter to me. Something divine had been orchestrated, and it knew that underneath, this cancer was a root problem that had been going on for a really, really, really long time. And I had learned to live with it. I had learned to live with it. I didn't even think about it anymore. I had adapted and found all my modalities, and I really considered myself sort of past it. I mean, I remember writing in my my advanced directives, thinking, if I ever was in a car wreck or something, please don't forget to put my mouthpiece. It was literally in my
Yeah.
advanced
Yeah.
directive, as if it was not healable, right? As if it wasn't an option anymore, that was could be repaired or healed.
Mhm. Mhm.
And to never underestimate the power, of divine order. And we forget. I love the way that Joe says over and over, the hardest part is remembering remembering who we actually were. But we become an identity, we become something, and really this idea of letting go of that person in order to change. you know um I was there for my belief in someone else.
Mhm.
And so the work since then, all the previous, the post retreats, I have gone back for me, right?
Yeah,
You know,
I wanted to
I have
dig a
gone
little
back.
bit more into that because I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I don't know that I
It's
would have had that experience had I been trying to believe in myself, because I'm not sure I did.
yeah.
I believed it was possible for him, and I believed that my love could potentially create a healing, space for him. But the divine showed me something I needed to know,
Yeah.
really profound. And
But
you know,
can we just
uh-huh.
dig a little more into that? Because I
Yeah.
think this would speak a lot to a lot of women I know because,
Mhm.
you know, it, as progressive as we like to think we are sometimes, I know that I was taught that my brother was more important than I was in a lot of ways.
Mm.
Not that we want to dig that much into the problem, but I wanted to kind of get a sense of like what what was the shift that happened in you where it was about someone else? Like you were saying you would never have done this
I
for
just
yourself at
don't
the time.
know the power and the magnitude of what happened. It still feels like such a gift from him on some
Okay.
level.
Oh,
That's
I
what it
feel like
felt
your
like.
brother gave that gift to you.
Yes,
Okay.
because you know, it's the awkward irony of losing him. He did pass away
Mhm.
3 weeks later. And to have been on my own healing journey, it was like because of the intersection of our beautiful relationship. We were
Mhm.
like Irish twins. I mean, I didn't know life without him. He was 14 months younger than me.
Mhm.
And so in the middle of this, incredible, you know, pancreatic cancer, which, these stage 4 cancers, they're just,
Brutal.
it exploded us as a
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
And the opposite was true for the both of us. I was always, looking to him for the physical guidance in the world. He was the athlete and the juicer and he had optimal health. And
Mhm.
I was in the behavioral health care space my whole
Mhm.
life, thinking it through, analyzing it, studying human behavior and, the sort of internal dynamics. And so we would leverage each other, and lean
Mhm.
into each other for that counsel and guidance. And then here he gets this worst case, cancer.
Yeah.
And and then, it opened my eyes again to the body, as such a collaboration between physical and emotional health. And now we're knowing, they're proving that so many of these chronic conditions, these things that we carry, and both of us having cancer in that, second energy center, there
Mm.
was something between us,
Mhm.
whether it had been, from family of origin or, environments we were exposed to together, whatever it was, or how we saw the world, just by our own DNA, whatever it was. Um, there was something that I could not pay attention to, and with even all that physical, and then this belief that's required to heal. It was required, and he would say to me over and over, I know it's possible. I'm so struggling to believe because of the numbers that were thrown at him.
Mhm.
I didn't believe the numbers for some reason that were thrown at me. I really didn't.
Oh,
I
interesting.
and part of it was because of this community, because I had seen testimonials, and I was a 2, and there's something about a 2 and a 4, stage that even, has an
Mhm.
effect on the mind, right? And he was a financial planner, so he kept saying to me, the numbers are really hard for me to get past.
Oh,
He
interesting.
would say, I've studied numbers my whole life. I don't know how to not believe these statistics, Robin,
Mhm.
and so we would work it together, and at this point it doesn't matter. What I will say that was so beautiful, that I can say now, 3 years later, and a lot of grief work and in many more retreats working on these things, in my heart and my healing, post his passing, um, is that what happened there supernaturally, fundamentally, that I did go home a new person. And I brought that to his transition space. And that was quite profound as well.
Mhm.
He reflected back to me, keep doing the work. And all he could say was, thank you so much for whatever I brought back into the space that helped him, drop his body and move on in a way
Yeah.
that was super peaceful, and that I believe with all my heart he did feel ready. And
Mhm.
I could feel it, I could see it. And there was a space that we again found together. It was a very unique, special, something you can't, that is inarticulable what that
Mhm.
was. Um, but now I live with this gift that I don't know that I would have even found Joe at the time, you know.
Mhm.
Of course, now I do it for me, and
Yeah.
that work is that much harder, you know. When the heart is unzipped and the and we're there for others, it's there is a greater depth of allowance is what I believe. And one of the reasons that I'm so deeply committed to being a part of Coherence Healings, um, because in that giving I did receive.
Yes.
So now I'm like, that is the ultimate magic there at the
It's
end
so
of the day.
interesting that I'm talking to you about this because this is the area of growth that I need, which is that balance,
Aha,
that like
aha.
give.
Yes,
So yeah, very
yes.
unexpected, but
Yeah.
beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes,
So
that's a
little
gift
did
to
I
me. So
know,
thank you.
way back then, we all have these things in our life.
Yeah.
The traumas that I didn't even realize were stored in my body. Over the years, I was that kind of person. I was a bit of a cheerleader, a bit of a, I mean, in a good way, a Pollyanna. When I would hit the intersections or the bumps or the barriers or the tough times in my life, my mindset was, I'll find another way.
Mhm.
But what I realized in retrospect, there is a really important piece of processing our pain. And some of those intersections in my life, whether it was an earthquake, that horrified me, or the other things that led to the imbalances in my nervous system, which there were quite a few that I learned later. I really never took the time to wonder with my body, what's going on in here. I
Yeah.
just would kind of put it to the side and try to move on to that next place, that next thing I could control in the world. And so I think there's a sweet spot, right?
Hmm.
And that the body does know. The body is trying to talk to us, is trying to tell us things. And we're learning now that the emotions, that they are their own system, and they are asking for our attention.
Hmm.
And they're saying now they must be managed. They literally, they down regulate, you
Yeah.
know our the very cells and tissues that become the organs. And so, over the last years since that supernatural moment, I've been really working with the body in a more gentle, graceful, loving, way, so that I can understand those emotions that were there, that really
Yeah.
needed that
Yeah. And the
attention.
last question I wanted to ask you was how do you approach um kind of your daily routines differently after that experience? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. You mean the day to day? I think that um I definitely make time
hmm.
for myself in a way I never did.
Hmm.
Um, I've become acutely aware of the sensations now, um, in a new way, where I work with my body. I actually talk to it more, you know, if it's having a moment, I would say my first half of my life was so much about assessment,
Hmm.
that post that experience day to day, when the sensations come up, whatever they are, the emotions, the feelings from whatever's going on in my life that day, be it, an email that suddenly, my throat's closing up, or I feel an intensity in my body, I try to pause and give it attention. I take, even if it's 10 seconds or 30 seconds or a minute, so that I'm not just, you know, keep
Yeah,
on going.
not processing and keep
Right, right.
action.
I
Yeah.
want to be present. I think, and this is a craft, this is a skill, this is an art.
Hmm.
Um, I think that I will give myself credit that whatever my coping styles were to that point, they were important and necessary. And I'm going to believe that they served me up until they didn't.
Hmm.
And then here came the cancer, right?
Yeah.
And so, the message of that, the message of the intersection of change, which is really what, the loss of my brother created,
Hmm.
an intense one. And I think, I had other really intense intersections in my life that, maybe even a dark night of the soul, 10 or 15 years ago when I went through a divorce. This one was different. I called it a gray night. It was different because there was a lot of evolution going on, as opposed to, my first sort of dark night of the soul was, whoa, this human experience is something.
Yeah.
This second one, which was more a gray night, I knew there was something in it for me.
Yeah. I know
For
exactly what you're talking about.
you see what I
I'm
mean?
going through a great night now.
Gray is different. It's
Yeah, it
different.
is. You can feel
It
things changing underneath. Like
Yes, and
like
I think
yeah.
it's the value of age, right?
Yeah.
And experience. And I heard someone say recently, trauma is just a perceived loss of control. That's really
Mhm.
what traumas are. And every human being has trauma at some point to some degree. The intensity, I think, for each person, is where we could maybe all agree how traumas maybe differentiate, a war or whatever, the intensity of these traumas, that we are witness to. But all human beings have moments of perceived loss of control that are internalized very traumatically, you
Mhm.
know um and it started to, post that supernatural, it started to make me have a little bit more grace for just my experience as a human being, and turning some of that attention off of that external world and the other people and places and things
Mhm.
this work teaches us, back to this internal experience. So from a day-to-day place, I'm deeply committed to meditating every day, whether it's 15 minutes or 2.5 hours, right? I will take that time every single day. And being more of an observer to all of it, that dramatically changed because now
An
I'm more
observer to the
curious.
external world.
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
just, when something is going on and my body starts to have a reaction to it, I want to stay healthy and well. And so I say to myself, okay, there it is. Whether this is the time to do something about it or not, I'm not really sure. Usually that will depend on the intensity. So I like to think of the intensity or of a sensation. Is it a one or a two right now? I'd probably do something about it, try to change something,
Yeah.
you know. I like the 90 seconds. I'm just going to sit there for I think they call that the refractory period. I'm going
Yeah.
to give it that
Where it
90
takes
seconds.
to you at the time it takes to renew an emotion.
Yes, to renew. I
Yes.
mean, they say 90
Yes.
seconds is before your body takes a hit,
Yeah.
right? So if I'm in that 90 seconds and, I can really, really move through that, whatever it is, then I can make a new choice. But
Mhm.
if it's a really big one, an 8 or a 9 or a 10 or whatever, and I have no idea what it is or where it's coming from or why my body would be reacting, I just know I'm still working it out. I don't
Yeah, yeah.
it's
It's like,
probably
"Ooh."
not the time to respond to that email. It's
Yeah.
probably not the time, to feel like I have a handle. It's probably a time to stay curious, to be a little more, maybe to journal, maybe to wonder, maybe just to notice it. Maybe that's all I have time for in that moment.
Yeah.
But that this is truly my life, and because I've been blessed and gifted, with more life,
Mhm.
I want to honor it. I want to honor it in a way. And, I got a, I got a lot of things. I got a lot of things I'm working through. So, I just try to go, we're in the river. We're just in it. We're in
Yeah.
the river. And that's why we're here. So,
Yeah. Feel
my
good in the
greatest
river.
desire is just to go out, um, different than I came in. And, to really open up to the love that's there for me, and to
Mhm.
keep showing up, just to keep putting myself in spaces where that can happen. um it's certainly harder alone. The I don't want to say the mental uh journeys we go through,
Mhm.
in the alone space when we're crossing time and space. um those can borderline for me, back into that fear and sometimes, and so, when I can find others, conversations like this, debriefs after, when you can find the power of community, um then I can let that go just a little bit more.
Oh,
um
interesting. We have
a
very
little
different
bit
takes
more.
on that. We'll have to talk some other time about that.
Say that again, what was
I
the?
said we have very different takes on that. I have a very different operating system.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right,
that's so
right.
interesting.
Right. Yeah. And little by little, I will say there has become such a joy and a comfort,
Mhm,
and a trust in that solo space,
mhm,
that alignment with source, and you know, uh certainly uh more integration and gratitude and curiosity about it all. So yeah, there it
that's
is. There it is,
beautiful.
Maggie.
Well, on that note, let's wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining.
Oh gosh.
Um, yeah,
Yeah. I have been trying to do my testimonial with Encephalon now for 3 years, and still have not shared publicly with them the power of those amazing healers and what I experienced. So thank you for giving me the space to be so vulnerable. This just lets me know that I really am probably ready to
yeah,
tell them all about
I
their
think you
wonderful
are.
work and what has evolved since that amazing moment of time. So, to all of you that have not been to a retreat, I highly encourage it. If you have not experienced or dabbled in coherence healings, they're so beautiful. And the power of love is a real thing, um, both physically and metaphysically. Both energetically and emotionally and spiritually. So, um, go for it. Dabble, play, get curious. And thank you so much, Maggie.
Oh,
Thank you
you're
for having me.
welcome.
For more mystical and miraculous stories, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, to remind yourself to feel joy every day when you walk in the door or your office, and just that delicious feeling, buy one of my prints or paintings or sculptures at MaggieMinerDesigns.com. Thank you.